Thank you very much. It's so great to be here today. I note after hearing that video, I'm not the last to speak, but I do like to think I'm still some sort of a leader within this community. It's fantastic to have this opportunity to talk to you about my personal reflections on COVID, and most people who know me, one of the most common words they use to describe me is enthusiastic, and you'll probably see my positivity coming through even though we are facing a global pandemic. So I'm going to try and keep it entertaining but factual as well. So I'll just see, here we go. Before I start, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land in which we are meeting and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, for they hold the hopes, dreams and customs of our First Nations people, which is the most resilient culture in the world, showing over 65,000 years of resilience. So my topic is resilience and innovation, and I'm going to start with some innovation first. But first, when we think about COVID, I love this from Back to the Future. Someone said, Marty, whatever you do, don't go back to 2020. And this was from 1962, and it's from a magazine, and it's their prediction of what the world would be like by next year, 2022. And it's pretty close. We're all in our little capsules. We don't have face masks, we're all driving our own little individual bubbles, but who would have thought that's actually quite an accurate prediction of the world we're currently living in. I am a mad fan of quotes, and I've got a couple of quotes in my presentation today, but I love this one. Only a crisis, actual or perceived, produces change, real change. And so if we look at QR codes, did you know QR codes have actually been around 25 years? How many of you actually used one up until a couple of years ago? I know I didn't know. I used to have to say to people, there's a QR code, okay, open up your camera and click and it'll bring you. Now everyone, all ages, know how to just go in and click. So QR codes are amazing. And I noticed on the table today that they've got advertisements for learning Mandarin, and if you flick on the back you'll see the QR codes of how you can actually get more information from the internet. Really, really handy stuff. Another great innovation about QR codes is people are tattooing them on themselves, and if you can see the picture there with the woman and the man, that's so that you can go on a social dating website when you link on their QR code. So they're walking down the street, if you like the look of them, you can actually design your own QR code so people can find out all about your personality before you actually go out on a date. McDonald's, this guy tattooed his arm with his own proof of vaccination. I don't think I'd go that far, but you know, it's quite an amazing invention. There's even edible QR codes that people are putting on food, which will tell you the nutritional value of the food you're eating, and you can then eat the QR code. And these pajamas were invented so that all the little dots are all separate bedtime story links. So the kids can say, I don't know, read me a storybook from my bum today, maybe. So quite inventive to keep kids occupied, and a great way to encourage reading. When I go to the gym, I now find there's QR codes on every single piece of equipment I use. And the idea with that is that you can then find out how to use the machine by clicking on the QR code, and it'll play you the video of how to do it properly. Sorry, I'll share the stick over this side as well. They also found QR codes are being used for dementia. So dementia patients are having their bracelet with the QR code, which will link to information. So if they go wandering, you can click on it and find out who they are and what nursing home they belong to. So some really great innovations that have really come about because COVID-19 has sped up information about it. The next one is teleconferencing, and again, this is from 1910, I think it is, 1910 artist's impression of what the world would look like by the year 2000 when they do video conferencing. And actually, once again, pretty good prediction 90 years later. It took the telephone 75 years to reach 50 million people, and then it took the TV 38 years. It only took Pokemon Go 19 days. So the point is, sorry, I'm clicking the wrong way, I think. Sorry, if I can go back. Here we go, sorry. It only took Pokemon Go 19 days. So technology has improved incredibly fast and for incredibly speedy, and that's what we've seen as well with some things during COVID where everything needed to be done quickly, and we've gotten onto it. And one of them's the teleconferencing. The actual word video was coined in 1935. So a really long time ago, but it's actually only been in the last decade or so that we've really taken on to video conferencing. I love pictures and really quirky things, and so these slides are basic pictures of how video conferencing started. And we can see sort of like in the 1970s, I just love the look of some of this technology. I'm pushing the wrong button each time, I'm sorry everyone. But even up until 2018, Snapchat could only allow a maximum of 16 people to access their video conferencing. And we can see that so Instagram could only allow 4 people. Then came COVID, and it changed the way video conferencing was used. And we can see then that there was a 21 times the number of people accessing things like Zoom and Microsoft Teams. Zoom has 50% of the market share, and we've gone from 16 participants through to up between 500 and 1,000 people available to be online at one time on a video conference. It's just truly amazing. And when you look at Zoom, 350 million daily meeting participants. And that's all because of COVID, everyone realising you can go online. What they also found was that 79% of people actually like being online. I know that before COVID, I used to think I had to attend every single meeting and I had to go in person. And now I realise, actually, I can do it from my office. You've got to be really careful because a lot of people multitask and they turn their camera off. And I always think, oh yeah, you're turning your camera off because you're actually going to multitask. But they also found that 61% of people are going to continue to use this post-COVID. This is a photo I took from today. Before I came here, I had an obesity prevention focus group meeting, and that involves around 20 people join this group, and they actively participate, and we've done it online since COVID, and we always get a great turnout. And someone said, can I get a photo of you all so that I can have a screenshot of it? And then someone said, well, you've got the Christmas themes you can do now. So there's a way that Microsoft Teams is trying to get people more engaged by doing that. You can all sort of be in the normal photo there, and then the Christmas setting that it sets for you so it looks like it's a bit more humorous and fun. And it's an even better way of connecting than we've ever had before. So that was the actual participants, some of them there, and that was them when they actually made them into a Christmas theme. Resilience. I love this quote from F. Scott Fitzgerald. One should be able to see that things are hopeless and yet be determined to make them otherwise. And this is, I think, where resilience comes in. I always look on the bright side of life, and there's some really great things in the world that have happened because of COVID-19 that would never ever have happened if we didn't have a global pandemic. Now you'll be able to see on this side there's a picture. This is the top places in the world and the pollution rates, and they've changed. There's been a drastic reduction in pollution caused through COVID-19, and we can see this more particularly when we look at India. So, India, this is before COVID, after COVID. Same picture, before and after. The clear water in Venice, it's led to jellyfish to be able to be seen in the water, and totally changed the canals. And also the Great Wall of China, before COVID and after. So some amazing impacts that have been brought about. The downside, we now have a pollution problem with face masks. But if we look, I used to live in Japan, and I used to go to Nara to see, I'm pushing the wrong button again, to see all of the deer that are in Nara Park, and yet they had no one visiting, so they could go even further, and they were hunting out for food, so they were all over the streets. And we can see wild boars running in Sardinia, coyotes near the San Francisco Golden Gate Bridge, and also the swans and now dolphins swimming in Venice because there are no boats getting in the way now. Cougars and wild animals all on the streets of Thailand and America, and goats. So, I mean, you know, the resilience, one of the animals, but the change, and you can just see this change caused by lack of population being out walking around. We also had some amazing sporting achievements. There were quite a few people around the world did some amazing feats, like one man doing a marathon on his 7-foot balcony. Do you know how dizzy you'd get? You know, 42 kilometres just back and forth, back and forth. And another guy did it in his backyard. These are very, very dedicated people. Absolutely remarkable. So I think that's a great show of resilience there. One of the downsides, the big downsides to COVID has been what we call touch starvation. Particularly in Australia, we're a very hugging and social sort of culture where we shake hands, we hug each other when we see each other. Someone will say, do you want a photo? And we go in, and oh, I know I do. I always say, oh, I'm a hugger, and I go and grab everybody. But there's this thing called touch starvation, and it's where we can no longer have that sense of touch because we're told to distance ourselves. And a lot of children feel it as well now because, you know, the kids used to come home, if they fall over, you say, oh, come over here, I'll give you a cuddle, you know, and then on the street, you're not allowed to do that anymore. And so what we know about the benefits of touch is that it produces great hormones that make you happier. And so what we know as well is that touch starvation causes loneliness. It causes depression and anxiety, feeling stressed. And it's that lack of connectedness. And they did this study, and the red there, this is the question. If someone didn't receive a hug, it's the black line. And so on the black line, it's higher. And that's the same-day negative effects higher than if they experience conflict, and it's lower if they got a hug. So what it does is when you get hugged, you're soothed and you feel a lot better about yourself. And they even found that the next day, this is the next day result, that after a conflict, lower feelings of feeling anxious. So hugging is an important thing that's no longer around. This was the World Press Photo of the Year in 2020. And it took me a while to work out what this photo was about, but it was about an 85-year-old Brazilian woman, and she was getting a hug, her first embrace in 5 months. And they had to do it through a plastic curtain at the hospital. And someone took a photo of it because it looked like angel wings to me, and her hugging embrace symbolising, and it symbolised to the world the necessity of and importance of a hug, and just making people know we're all in this together. So I love that photo. I think it's just such a great reminder of the importance of touch. This is one that came second place this year in the World Photo of the Year. This is a woman, she's 24 years old, she's dying of cancer, and she's in a hospital, in palliative care hospital in France, but she's getting a hug from her son, and there's a horse there. And I love this photo, not because it symbolises and shows that she's almost passed away, but the animal therapy is a major part of soothing people, pet therapy, and the hugging of her son. So when we look at not being able to touch in this world, we can do a number of things. Animal therapy. If you don't have someone to see you, because a lot of people now, they can't see their family, hug and give your dog or cat a pat. It makes a big difference. Or we do this in the hospital. We let these really cute, I don't know, I want to call them snickerdoodle dogs. I don't know what they are. They're a cross between a poodle and something else, and they're adorable. But the kids love them because they can pat them and they can be near them. And animals are just amazing therapy for people. Get your hair or nails done. Having someone touch your head or your nails, it may not seem like much, but you'll look $1 million at the end, and it'll make you actually, your hormones and all these nice feelings come out. Wave at your neighbours. It's amazing how just the symbol of kind of touch and hug, or the wave, makes you feel connected to people. I do this all the time, normally through my favourite thing, which is me as a cartoon character. It's called a Bitmoji. I stick them on all my things. So if I can't hug or kiss somebody in my family, I don't do it to strangers, don't worry. But if I can't do that, I'll put up on my email, me hugging and kissing, because it does a similar thing. It gets your mind thinking about embrace, and it's a nice way to feel closer to people. And another quote that I love, one of the most important things you can do on this earth is to let people know that they're not alone. And I think in COVID, we can all feel sorry for ourselves or think of other people that have it really bad, but we're all in this together. We are all suffering at varying degrees. And what I love around the world, unlike the Spanish flu in 1918, there are very few monuments that symbolise all the deaths that happened from that Spanish flu. But what we've found in the world, they're starting to actually realise we need some lasting legacy to remind people of what a terrible time this has been and will continue to be. This is in America, and this is a temporary memorial they've had. At the time I took this photo, or I didn't take the photo, I took the photo off the internet, they had 687,000 deaths, but they're up to more than 794,000 deaths. But each of these white flags is a handwritten message to the person who's died. So they have 794,000 individual white flags. And you can see the sea of flags, but it's their way of being able to write the name of their loved one and know people are going to actually go and visit, and it's their way of getting over their grief. I love that whoever is clever enough to be able to draw a 20,000 foot portrait and know how to put the face in the right order when they're looking at it from above. I mean, that's just a talent. But this was a man, he went to a poor area in Queens in New York, and he went to the outside the museum and in the car park did this great memorial to a paramedic, and you can see it from space. So that's a 20,000 foot lasting memory of COVID-19. And then the next one is in Uruguay. This is the largest mass giant memorial, and you can see in the picture it's actually near water. People can go and walk on it, climb on it, and it's a reminder and been built by a company specifically to in memory of people who have died during COVID-19. Then we've got in Latvia, they've got a giant 20-foot high sculpture to honour medics to the world, it's called. So again, really neat. And probably this is my favourite just for everyone being involved in it. It's in London, and every single heart is an individually hand-painted love heart of someone's loved one. Once again, it's over 140,000 individual hearts to symbolise the people in Britain who have lost their lives. It's important to remember that although COVID has killed a large number of people, we do know that over 100,000 people have also died in addition through not accessing treatment. And this is where it's time for the world to move forward, because the longer we delay treatment because of fear of going to the hospital, the more sick people are going to become. And so it's really important. That's why vaccinations are so important, so we can move forward and treat the people who need to be treated without the fear that they're going to get COVID. Again, another quote I really like: never doubt that a group of thoughtful, committed people can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. And I love this quote because Toowoomba is the most kind, caring community I've ever had the pleasure of living in. And I have lived in a number of places. This is my, bragging, because this is my amazing daughter, who I haven't seen in 16 months. Her name's Jasmine, and in 2019, I sent her off to Canada to go and play basketball for a university over there. And she was there, and we went and visited her in December of 2019 and said, we'll see you in about 6 months, you know, thinking we were going to see her, as everyone did. Whoever thought they would get rid of airplane flights, it wasn't me. I never ever believed she would be stuck there and I wouldn't get to see her. The thought and fear I have of her being alone at the age of 20, when I think about it, it's very scary for me, so I try not to think about that. But I'm incredibly grateful to Pure Land Learning and the Goodwill Committee, because a couple of weeks ago, they put on a candlelight vigil, and hearing the experiences of people like me who've got it a lot worse off, having family members die and not being able to go to the funeral, having experienced family that they can't see or touch and hug as well. I'm not alone, and that gives me a bit of comfort, and I need the comfort for when I actually think about the situation my daughter's in. But what I also take pleasure in is knowing that the world since COVID, it used to be 6 degrees of separation. You talk to someone and someone would know someone who knew someone 6 people away. Now it's 2 degrees of separation. And you talk to someone and they know someone straight away. So the world is a lot smaller. But this is a photo from the candlelight vigil, and it was great to see such a good turnout from people, all experience what I am. The lack of touch, the touch starvation, the relatives that live in another country that you just cannot see even if you wanted to. Another form of resilience is last year, in March of 2020, I set up a vulnerable communities group with 40 different members of this community so we could get together and hear a source of truth. That group's been going now since that time, and we still continue to meet. And it's so good to have that bond and connection. So COVID, even though it's been bad, it's kept us all connected with a common cause, a common vision and purpose. We've had 56 meetings since we first started where we all share resources or experiences and stories. For me, I will remember this forever as a real positive for the community. I'm a big fan of the social determinants of health, so things that happen to you outside of health, because 80% of what happens to you is not related to access to healthcare. It's about your education, your employment and things. And the Vulnerable Communities Group covers community members from all different walks of life, but with common themes of things wrong with them. And this is the groups that are involved in how they are connecting to the same people across the community. So education's represented. All of these groups are working with these vulnerable people to make their lives better and to make a difference.